Welcome everybody to Voices in Hyperspace. This is a fun podcast where friends get together and discuss everything sci-fi related. Our current mission is to review and have fun with the 90s hit TV series Babylon 5. I am one of your hosts, Legendary Black Lion.
I'm Mel Asylum.
I'm Nita, the painter.
Hey y'all, it's Sunday.
We are looking at episode 20 of season 1 of Babylon 5, entitled Babylon Squared. Before we jump in, I wanted to get kind of your impressions. You watched the episode with me. What did you think?
I thought it was exciting to hear from I don't know if it's too early in the recording, but to say that we got a glimpse into the past. Yeah, and that was pretty dope.
Well, a lot of things that has been foreshadowed is now like coming to light just a tiny bit.
Yeah, y'all got to see a whole lot. They were pulling some heavy weight for the storytelling in this one.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was pretty amazing because there are parts of the story, like as someone looking back and rewatching it, I'm like, wow, they were really, like, there are other episodes that are doing some heavy lifting as far as like dropping a little breadcrumb here, dropping a little breadcrumb there, and just letting you know, like, this is going to be important later. And they show you, like, okay, we told you this is important, but not just yet, not just yet. But this episode, they just kind of threw their weight around. J. Michael Straczynski and the showrunners were really showing you how to weave a story that had like implications throughout a series. And I don't want to get too much into it because we'll be spoiling like the end of it, but we'll jump in. Mel, can you go ahead and tell us the broadcast date?
The broadcast date was August 10th, 1994.
All right. So, 1994. So for some of y'all, when I think of it, honestly, you know, I'm over there on the older end of things. I don't know if anybody younger is listening to this. If you are, welcome. But 1994 was like that was an interesting year for me. What about you, Mel?
Okay, so this cool little fact about me. The year went with the grade that I finished that year.
Oh, wow.
So in 94, I finished, like, I graduated in 2002. That was my 12th grade year. So in 1994, I was in 4th grade.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's I know how old I was and where I was based on the year.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. I was put back a grade in like 1st grade, so you had to like add a grade, age to that. So I would have been about 9 or 10.
Yeah. 1990.
10, yeah, because my birthday's in June, so yeah.
Okay, 10 years old. What about you, Sunday? Did you remember anything from your past? Your mysterious past?
I don't know. Anything before... It'd be all a blur, but if I do the math, yeah, I'm pretty bad at. I think I was around 12. And yeah, what grade are you in at 12?
Is that
12?
8th grade? 8th grade or a freshman?
Yeah, 7th or 8th. Yeah, 8th or 9th. Wait,
Yeah.
freshman?
Nah.
Well,
that would be
Because 10 is usually 5th grade. So 12 would have been, like 7th or 8th.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
nobody wants to remember that time.
No one wants to remember middle school. Middle school is a throwaway.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Nita? 1994, the summer of 1994, by the way. Do you remember anything about yourself?
No. I was 5. No, I wasn't. I was 4 in the summer.
Yikes.
And yeah, I couldn't tell you.
I think that's kind of funny because
color with crayons and sliding down the slide.
Listen, I can't even confirm or deny that I was alive. That's the kind of memory that I have.
I was officially a teenager. I think I was a 94. I know in 1993 I came to Kansas City. I did the 7th and 8th grade. I think I might have been a freshman. Yeah, I was turning 15. Okay. I was turning 15 that year. So, no, I'm sorry. No, it wasn't. I was turning 14 that year. I don't know. I think I might have been a freshman, but I'm not 100% sure.
I just realized, okay, I'm an idiot. I was born in 83. This is 94, so I was 11, and my birthday's in the spring. So yeah, I was 11. Okay, yeah. Okay. Let me do a stupid math.
So you were even
let me
younger.
Do actual math. No, I was 11.
11. Oh, okay.
11. Yeah, I guess 9. So I was off by 2 years. But that's because I was going by what grade I thought I was in. Not a
problem. Yeah. I mean, it was for those of us who are aged. It was a long time ago. We're further from it. Memory changes. It's weird. It's kind of funny because we're going to be talking about temporal topics in this episode.
Temporal sci-fi stuff.
So, real quick, Nita, what was your impression of this episode?
Oh, I found it very interesting, especially he looks like he's 30, but he died of old age. And I was like, oh, he was whacked, wasn't he? Because this conversation with people before, do different kinds of humans age differently? So it was really interesting to be to learn that his organs were all old, even though he appeared young. And I wanted to see that happen to more people. I wanted that part to play out a little bit more. But, I was a little bit disappointed in that. But overall, I thought the episode was very interesting.
Okay. Some type of space virus aging people's organs and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to even talk about it without saying so much about the episode, but I think what that part did was it laid the foundation to say, here is the potential risk that's being presented, right? But I mean, of all the episodes, we've had a couple of episodes that showed
what we wanted out of life.
The overall theme was a mystery. This one was a huge mystery.
Wanted, which was something that I didn't want.
It actually showed our crew thinking a little bit.
There's no hard.
There was a couple of things that really
come back later
that stood out. I would be. Okay, I don't know if it bothers me per se, but it's one of those things that's
got married.
Yeah, that's definitely a sci-fi had a kid, explanation, and we'll get there in just a moment
because he's black.
White. Because I feel like we're gonna jump right past one of the things that
he got the life he wanted to.
I thought it was jacked up.
I can't be mad because I let him go
they
for
that. On the Bonneva. I can blink. And I can miss a whole gap of time, okay? So I kind of took that personal. Why y'all do her like that?
Her best friends,
And yes, and I'm so caught up with my Google Calendar. I'm not the best at scheduling, and when I make mistakes, that it really it feels bad when I'm disappointing or letting people down if I'm not where I'm supposed to be when I was supposed to be there. And the way she hopped up from that table and ran like her ass was on fire, I feel you, Ivanova, and I'm sorry that happened to you.
I would not want to be friends with them if they did that. And especially since she knew, both of them knew. He sat there and counted, she's going to figure it out in a few seconds. And she knew it was him, and she's still that's my brother. Have any friends? I guess maybe I know what it's like to be that lonely that you're gonna be friends with some people that you probably don't need to be, but yeah, I see it. I see it now.
Yeah.
I thought that was
a harmless prank.
I thought that was
it was harmless, but like I would have been pissed. I would stop talking to someone if they did that to me.
I mean, you can only take it harmless when your commanding officer is pulling the prank, but at the same time, who did she yell for?
Garibaldi.
Right. So we can only assume like they have this relationship. Like he's pulling pranks on her often. And I mean, we have seen them get together enough times in the morning time. It's weird. Have you ever noticed their food?
Not entirely.
Like Belgian waffles or something.
They like their plates are pretty stacked, but Ivanova's always eating like some colorful, fruity stuff.
Because she's trying to live.
And Sinclair and Garibaldi are always, to me, they're always eating something hearty.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I will say this: it's not important at all. It's just going to stand out later in another episode. But
I think it's genderly charged.
You think it's what?
Genderly charged.
Yeah.
It probably
little
is.
fragile girls eat just some fruit salad, some
Well,
melons, and the men get to eat hearty.
They actually do make it a part of Ivanova's character. I don't know what to make of that. It might be genderly charged. I can't even say that word. It might be genderly charged. It might not be. But y'all be the judges because I don't know. But I thought it was funny. I wrote down in my notes that Garibaldi is a jerk. He went right along with the joke and knew that it was going to be pinned on him. So,
was it Garibaldi's? I thought it was. Was it Sinclair's idea to do that?
It was Sinclair's idea. Garibaldi went along with it. He was like, "All right, give me your meal. Let's sit over here."
Right, because for some reason I thought it was Garibaldi. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't paying attention.
You got a little.
There was a lizard on my desk.
Yeah. So after that prank, they get like they find out that there's a signal coming from Sector 14, which I think this is the first time that they ever mentioned Sector 14 in Babylon 5. Okay, no problem, no big deal. They're always sending people out to do like recons and whatnot. And what is interesting is they sent Alpha 7 to investigate it, the strange readings. And I'm going to go ahead and get into it right now. They were talking about high-level tachyons coming from Sector 14. Do y'all know what tachyons are?
Tachyons have to do with temporal stuff. Usually when tachyons are being emitted, it affects the flow of time.
Mm-hmm. So I went and I know the sci-fi use of it. I went and looked it up, and I wanted to share this with you before we get into it.
I just remembered something about tachyons.
Go ahead.
Don't they like move faster than the speed of light? And that's what we study in order to study things about time. Like they actually don't fit into the way we understand things moving within time. Kind of like light doesn't fit inside the way we understand how things move inside time.
Yeah.
Well, what I know about tachy and ions, ions are like molecule things, and then tachy means fast. So whatever it is, it's fast.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went and looked it up. Tachyon particles is a hypothetical particle that always travels faster than light. Physicists believe that faster than light particles cannot exist because they are inconsistent with the known properties of physics. If such particles did exist, they could be used to send signals faster than light. According to the theory of relativity, this would violate causality, leading to logical paradoxes. We're going to look at one in this episode, such as the grandfather paradox. Wow, they mentioned it. Tachyons would exhibit the unusual property of increasing in speed as their energy decreases, and would require infinite energy to slow down to the speed of light. No verifiable experimental evidence for the existence of such particles has been found. But in sci-fi, they really like to use those, and it's a cool like sciencey way to explain temporal occurrences. And if I think I remember correctly, and yeah, look, everybody can correct me if I'm wrong. But in Star Trek, I think they say that tachyons move backwards in time, or they are observed in moving backwards in time, which is pretty interesting.
Sounds like a Tolkien said it, but
yeah, something like that. But in the sci-fi,
I know they use it a lot in sci-fi. Yeah,
yeah, in the sci-fi context, when you hear tachyons, you just think time travel, pretty much, which is interesting and fun. Which, guess what this episode's about?
Who had a tachyon emitter? Was it Doc Brown? Was it the flux capacitor, a tachyon emitter?
Yo, I'm gonna have to look that up. That sounds familiar.
I feel like a lot of 90s sci-fi had things to do with tachyons. Like, what, just bring them up.
Yeah.
Not at random, but obviously whenever time travel was involved in some way. But especially in Star Trek.
It's the part that makes time travel possible, because it's a part, like, you can use a science term, but not know how it really works. And then, since nobody knows how it works, you can make it work however you need for the episode.
And that's sci-fi in general.
Like, yeah. In sci-fi in general, and like the movies and whatnot.
Take the basic knowledge of like gamma rays. Like, gamma rays alter genetics. And so let's create an entire universe where everything and anything happens when gamma rays affect your genetics.
All right, Stan Lee.
Yeah, like he read about it. That's all he knew about it. It's like, well, that's not probably all. He read it in a science journal. After I heard about him reading that, I started subscribing to a lot of like science update things on like Instagram and stuff. I don't get a whole lot, but yeah, it's inspiring to like just play with these ideas that people are coming up with.
Yeah. All right. So the station sends Alpha 7 to investigate the strange readings. The Alpha 7 goes, and before the show starts, he's all like, it's the, and then there's like a large like glow or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's on his way back to Babylon 5. Babylon 5. Ivanova scans the ship and it's like, okay, yeah, it's Alpha 7, but we're not getting any life signs. He's dead. They pull him on the station, and this is where they say like he died of old age. This is one part that slightly bothered me in the episode. And look, before I go too far, this is a good episode. This episode is great. Most of these episodes are great. And there was only like 3 that I had problems with. But this one is a good one, right? Garibaldi is the one giving all the medical information in this episode.
Yeah, that was weird.
You know why?
Because reading the medical report.
He's in everybody's business. That's why he's giving.
Well, and I went ahead and watched a few of the episodes, the rest of the season, and like practically without throwing out anything to have to do with the show, but having to do with the show. Like a lot of times you can notice like when actors are just taking a break from the show, like they just don't have, like maybe they're on vacation, they were on set for like, I don't know, like they got long hours. So having them be in every episode all the time is probably quite difficult and not inexpensive. So they only have so many characters each time. So Garibaldi giving it, I don't know, kind of doesn't make sense. I think it would, for me, it would have made more sense if Ivanova had pulled up the data. But for him to just be like, yeah, I know what's going on. But then also he is nosy, so yeah.
Yeah, they gave all that information in like exposition. They had to get that part of the story going really fast because the rest of the show is really important, and the Delenn part goes very, very slow. But there's a reason why.
Yeah, the exposition, I really wish they could just had an extra as a nurse, like show up with the data instead of giving it to Garibaldi because it throws you off.
Yeah.
Because that was important, serious information, and Garibaldi we don't take seriously.
And this is something that makes me like appreciate current television shows over the way they used to do the things when we were younger. It was like you had your starring cast and nothing could ever happen to them. You know that no matter how crazy the commander is or how much of a death wish he has, no matter what mission he goes on, he's coming back. Okay, try that shit in Walking Dead though. Okay.
All right. So for the record, we're going to bookmark everything Sunday just said and come back to it.
Oh, okay.
Now I got Transformers on the brain. Okay.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, Mel, no. And you will find out.
Technically not funny.
You will find out in like shortly. Anyway, we'll like I said, we'll bookmark this. And I also want to speculate that like shooting Medbay probably costs a lot. The guy that plays Dr. Franklin, he is a gravity well of acting, and he halts the whole episode to make you pay attention to him. So that's probably another reason why they didn't bring him, because it's like we gotta get off of Babylon 5. What they find out is the dead body of Alpha 7 has engraved into his belt B4. And they're like, wait a minute, Babylon 4? And that's when we start learning about the previous station. Do y'all remember anything about Babylon 4 from this episode?
From this episode?
Yeah.
Oh, it was lost.
It
just kind of disappeared.
Right. They didn't know what happened to it. It was just like, it just vanished.
Yeah.
And when I saw the belt buckle, it made me think like, because in the show, it was like a flash. He saw a light, and then he was there, and his organs had aged. And I'm just like, how long? Like when they said he could have figured out how to put the coordinates in and had passed out or whatever, but then the ship got him back here, and that's how he arrived, even though he's not alive. But how long would it have taken him to carve that B4 into that belt buckle? And I was at the beginning confused by it, but it makes sense that he was, probably out there for a while.
Yeah.
So like that flash was him going through what we're going to see later in the episode.
Yeah.
And he figured it out, so he made the carving instead of trusting his instruments to collect the data.
Yeah.
Because tachyons.
Because tachyons. Which makes me think like was there metal fatigue also, because it didn't look like a fresh engraving. It looked aged, right? So maybe
it's like with organs.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. And I'm wondering if like the costume and props department kept that in mind as well, because it didn't look like a fresh engraving. But the other things that we remember from the season is Babylon 4 disappears. There was an episode where they said it looked like it just wrinkled like a piece of paper. That horrible actor that was like the guy chasing the Grail, he talked about it. And so there's like this lore in the background. I'm sorry, the dude was terrible. He smiled the entire time. I'm sorry. Anyway,
you mean the guy that eventually took on the mantle of looking for the Grail?
Yeah.
And he was like
Jinxo. That's what they gave him a dumb name too. Jinxo.
That was the 90s.
But they sit and talk about it, and they find out like, okay, this is B4. Sinclair says, what are the coordinates for Babylon 4? No, not what the coordinates, what are the station codes are. And they get the station codes, and then they find a distress signal from Babylon 4. And they're like, yep, it matches. It's coming from Babylon 4. And then they open the channel and they are talking to the major who was assigned to Babylon 4 over the communicator. That was wild, but it also makes me think of like those sci-fi movies where people are talking to each other through time.
I thought that it was really cool that they had to authenticate the signal and they weren't just like randomly like
running out to go see it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like, because you don't know who out there trying to snatch us up.
Yeah.
And it was good because it gave the crew a reason to look. Because, I mean, they're out in space. They probably get all kinds of rogue signals anyway. But they narrowed it down. They're like, we get it from Sector 14. So where Babylon 4 disappeared. And they do it pretty quickly as far as like their investigation. They get the signal, and then they're like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to Babylon 4. There was a part that I didn't notice the first time I watched it, but they're like asking how long would it take to evacuate people. And they calculate how many ships they can take, how long it takes to get there, and how long it takes to get back. So to do the full evacuation is what, 10 hours, 20 hours?
10 hours.
10 hours. Which I thought was pretty amazing because the first thing that they thought was like, okay, we're going to go and we're going to get people out. This means that they viewed the disappearance of Babylon 4 as a disaster. And the first thing that they can think of is if we can save people from this disaster, let's go ahead and do it. Which it also makes me think, do you think that they knew if anyone would be a survivor? Because it's been 4 years.
Right. Well, like, I guess they don't know if people died or if they just disappear. And then they should be, the station is designed to be self-sufficient. So if they had just been transported somewhere else and was left alone somehow in the middle of space, they could have just, lived on the station and just be sitting there driving with some babies or something.
I don't know if they were ever still looking for them, but I know once they got that confirmation that it was them, and even all the signs leading up to Babylon 4 was found, that was probably filling them with an immense excitement to be a part of the rescue mission. And that's why they had nobody stepping out of line for the volunteer of a mission that might have been a one-way trip.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that 100% of the pilots were like, yeah, we're about to go. So they had to have something in the back of their minds to say like, okay, we got Babylon 4. We know it ended in a disaster, but it's there. We're going to go and save some people, save some lives. So all of that makes a lot of sense. And we've also, like, we've seen the fighter pilots risking their lives before, along with a certain somebody.
Again.
So they go through that part pretty quickly. And like I said, it has to be part of the storytelling because Ivanova has that speech in front of those fighters, and then they're like, yeah, we're gonna go. And then we see Garibaldi and Sinclair jumping into a ship, and it is just them two in there, just hanging out.
Shooting the shit.
Shooting the breeze.
So let me ask you, do you button and zip or zip and button? Did you know?
I think that was Mel, and we have to keep that in because it's funny. We gotta make Mel laugh more often. That's great.
That scene made no sense. Like, why is it here? But like, it also kind of goes with the prank thing. Like, for some reason, not only do we have to like actually tell the story that we're here to tell, but show their friendship. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. It was like,
why is him to start telling dad jokes? Okay.
Oh no!
It wasn't like, okay, we're going to sit here and it leads into, like in Star Trek, they had that. Like, okay, we're going to like talk about this personal thing. Like, okay, so if Data and Geordi was in a shuttle pod together and Data asks Geordi about a joke and why is it funny, and then all of a sudden the alerts go off, and I'm getting, because it tells the story of we're sitting here and this is what happened right before we got the message. But with this, it was just, I'm just going to ask you this random question and we're going to get there with no incident. We didn't like.
Yeah, because they do take a long time to get to these places. And
it sounds like 2 hours.
Yeah, normally, whenever they send the fighters out, it's like, oh, yeah, we're going to be gone for 3 hours. But then, like, minutes later, they're wherever they were going. This one, it gave you a duration. Like, not only is it going to take us a long time, but we're going to be pretty bored. So, let's just entertain ourselves.
It's like real life in space. If you have a 2 hour deployment, whatever, 2 hour trip to somewhere, what are you doing? Just the two of y'all sitting in the thing talking about whether or not you zip that button first, right?
Which is it's such a nothing question. Like, anyway.
Oh, so you're not gonna answer?
Oh, what?
I don't ask you whether you
Claire answered.
I don't wear a military uniform.
Boo.
I thought you were talking about the fly.
He is. Davion's unwilling to answer the question.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Leave it to your imaginations. So the B story is Delenn. Early in the episode, she leaves the station. And she has like this very serious look on her face, and she has this awesome fuzzy seatbelt set up on her. Which I'm glad that they're showing people in starships wearing seatbelts. I don't care how good your inertial dampeners are. I don't care how good your inertial dampeners are. You're gonna need seatbelts. Excuse me. You're gonna need seatbelts. And they always try to make the Minbari stuff look special, so they just
would they have inertial dampers? Because they don't. They don't have one for the space station because they use rotation for gravity.
Yeah, but the Minbari ships have artificial gravity.
Oh, yeah.
Which
Minbari, okay.
Which I'm gonna assume that they have inertial dampeners because, like, they be flipping those little ships around and stuff. So that would have an effect. But anyway, that's in my head canon. We'll just go with it. But Delenn leaves the station and she ends up going to another ship, and there she recites this boarding call and response thing. It turns out that she's going to meet with the Great Council. This is interesting, but it does go pretty fast for this part. But remember, the Great Council, they gave her very explicit instructions about what her job is on Babylon 5. She's going there to observe. She's keeping an eye on Sinclair. And she was given a standing order to murder him if he remembers what happened to him on the Battle of the Line. For this part, because the way it went, I wasn't thinking like, oh no, Delenn and her secrets are, she's sneaking around. Even though she is kind of sneaking around, but at the same time, she's not. I don't know. What do y'all think?
From everyone else's perspective, she's being sneaky, but from her government, she's just following orders.
Yeah. And she's welcomed into the council. They do like this ceremonious welcoming, and the leaders are telling her, like, they're like, we're so happy that you could come back. It's been 10 cycles, essentially 10 years since the council was whole. And now, mourning is over and the time to pick a new leader is now. And then that person is telling Delenn, like, not only are we going to pick a new leader, but we're going to make you our new leader. And Delenn has a very interesting response to this.
I found because I know slightly kind of what happens in the future. But also she likes being there for some reason. She likes being nosy. She says that it is her purpose to serve, not to lead. And I think the part that comes after that, like all of the mentioning of no one's done this before. This is an honor. You're supposed, but we honored you with this. You're no one's ever done that. Like, it's more important that everyone else's opinion with the status is more important than what her heart tells her, and she's going with her heart, like ultimately, which is kind of cool and kind of rebellious.
Yep.
Because it seems to be in this situation, they're showing that the status quo is not actually learning from the knowledge that they gained, but using that knowledge of all the years that they study in the temple or whatever, or experience that they have is based on status. And that kind of saddens me a little bit, because it's like, oh, we study and we have all these books and we understand, but like, and that's like part of why she admires humans so much, because we're more active, we're more slightly more in tune to live by what we learn, what wisdom we learn from things, instead of just gathering it like her people does. And that agitates me. But also, I kind of don't really agree with the idea, like most humans, to lack of a better term, neurotypicals on it especially. I don't mean this meanly, but neurotypicals are very gifted at gathering their information based on what other people feel and think, or what's going to happen to them based on what they think other people are going to think. And that's what her people kind of do. It doesn't feel like they're actually gaining the knowledge for knowledge. They're gaining the knowledge for status. And they do sneakily kind of put status above a lot of things. Even though they act like it's kind of.
Yeah. I wouldn't say not a little bit. I think they do it a lot.
Maybe I was trying to be nice.
Because what I wrote down is...
Because that is status.
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote down the Minbari are very concerned with tradition. They want things to be the way that they've always been. And this episode is where the Minbari start to look like conservatives to me.
Yeah. And what's her name? She's been learning, she's been actually taking in and living the knowledge that she's learned from humans.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Delenn's reaction in this spot? Nita?
It was so like, no.
Yeah, there was a lot of acting in that part.
I was like, oh, she is surprised. She is hurt. She is relieved. But I think that was Delenn at the end of the movie.
Oh, it absolutely was. It was. Yeah. We'll talk about that because it's her voice. It's her voice.
Wow, Nita.
Yeah.
Was I not supposed to say that?
No, that's fine. That's fine. I think it's fine. Because anyway, and I think they did that on purpose. I think what they did on purpose was have a lot of her talking parts so you could hear her voice and make the connection at the end. We'll get there. Okay, so switching back to Babylon 4 to Sector 14, Garibaldi and St. Clair, they are entering, and what happens is they go through a distortion field, which that reminds you of what happened to Alpha 7 at the beginning of the episode. And he sends back word like, all right, you guys, the rest of the fighters wait until you get our word. and we'll let you know, right? And so they know that they went to us into that distortion field, which is full of tachyon. So they've entered the area. I don't know if they call it tachyon radiation in this show, but I know they do in other shows. So they're being bombarded, but with tachyons. That area is unstable in time. And just to kind of get this part out of the way, we learn that the station is unstuck in time. And that is having a major effect on everyone that is in that region. When Garibaldi, I thought this part was a little weird, but maybe, when we talk about it, we can kind of parse it out. But Garibaldi and Sinclair to get on B4, and they got their PPGs out, and they're like ducking behind crates. And I thought it was weird because they got onto the station without telling people they're getting on the station, and then they're like sneaking around. There's nobody else in the cargo area except for one dude that yells at them. It's like, "You guys are monsters. I'm going to get you."
Yeah.
And they have a gunfight.
Usually in a rescue mission, unless it's like completely, unless you get a rescue mission when there's people actually responding to you, you try to open communication first. But they just went on in as though it was a derelict ship. Like,
yeah, I thought that was a little weird.
It's like, we don't know what we might find in here. Like, we see life signs, but nobody's answering. But that's what they should have put instead of the daggone pants.
Oh my god! But also, it's just weird because it's like it's a derelict. We think it's a derelict ship, so we're gonna go and shoot everything,
right? And it's not like it's like I'm thinking about other sci-fis, like maybe Firefly, where like if you see a derelict ship, it may have Ravagers. What were the like zombie things in there? Yeah, but we don't have that. Careful. We don't have that here, so like it makes sense in something like Firefly. Firefly is so awesome, but
agreed.
I don't know. You might have convinced me because like Sinclair and Garibaldi are always they always find themselves in firefights. So
they're always looking forward to. So
yeah,
like, yeah. Let's pull our guns. Like, we don't know what we might get this shit up today.
It was a red mission.
It was a what?
Yeah, and yeah, and they don't know why the ship went missing like it did, so it might be hostile aliens on the ship, or hostile, anybody. It could be like
with his organs 30 years or 90 years older or some mess. So yeah,
somebody shot him and made his.
Okay.
Someone had a tachyon gun where they shot tachyons at him.
Tachyon gun.
I need to write that down.
I'm gonna aid you real quick. Let me shoot you with my tachyon emitter.
Like Mr. Freeze. That's the Freeze gun. Why not have a tachyon gun?
I'm gonna shoot you with my age ray. So they take down that guy. And they are confronted with Major Louis Kranz, who is the major that was assigned to making sure that the wrap up of Babylon 4 is done. And he explains that they have a crew of about like 1,200 people, which, wow, that is a lot. But if you think about how big the stations are, that's not a lot at all. These stations, well, Babylon 5 is like 5 miles long. So I can only assume Babylon 4 is comparable. And what they are experiencing, the major points out, they're experiencing flashes, and his crew is being tortured by them. Before he can explain that to Sinclair, they experience one. And one shows Garibaldi and Sinclair in a different time. They don't tell you when or where. Well, they don't tell you when. I can only assume it's Babylon 5. And they're in an emergency fighting against unseen attackers. And Garibaldi is like living his best life, shooting people. So
in the middle of war.
Yeah. This is what I was born for.
That says a lot about somebody. You're in the middle of war and you're like, this is my best life.
It's because Garibaldi thrives in conflict. They've shown a lot of that in season 1. You're gonna see it in the rest of the seasons too. Like this character is racked with all kinds of conflict. Just a little breadcrumb there.
Who else do we know, Damian, that thrives in conflict?
Sinclair? Is that
it starts with the same sound.
What?
Can somebody mute her? Sunday thrives in conflict.
Oh yeah. That's right. Do we need to give you like a giant like gun rifle, laser rifle, and have you shooting off against unseen attackers? Attack.
It shoots off verbal insults. That's what I'd be shooting.
Gonna hit people with a demoralizing ray. No.
The insult gun.
Oh, God. People would just start crying. Like, what did you hear? No. So we're back on the Lynn's thing with the Great Council. And I don't have this in the right order, but we're going to talk about it anyway. This is where she's reluctant to take leadership, and they tell her she has a conflict, right? If she's like, I don't want to. She didn't want to go into that first meeting because she's like, if I go in there and they vote me leader, I'm never coming out again. I'm going to live my entire days on this ship. And the guy was like, yeah, that sounds great. And she's like, no, because I got a responsibility. And
I got a whole life out here.
Right. And and so she's like, why don't we convene another meeting? And like in general, she's rejecting leadership, like you said, but she's doing it in a way, as Mel pointed out, not only is she rejecting it, but she's highlighting her service. She's like, I want to learn about these humans, but here's what's good about them, and we need to learn from them. And you know, it was pretty interesting. So back on B4, the major is like, yeah, see, that's been happening to us all the time. You know, Flash. Not only that, after one of the flashes, this is what we found. And so they go in interrogation room, and who do they find there?
Random alien.
His name is Zathras.
I want to know, like, are humans considered aliens too?
Yes, but
okay.
No, in reality, yes, but on the show, no. Everybody is an alien. Everybody that's not human is an alien to humans, and I think they did that as shorthand to just kind of make it simple for the show. In the future, they could probably.
They are in the future.
No, I mean, no. When I'm talking about like if they do like new TV shows and stuff, and they could be like, no, you're the alien because we don't know you, we don't like you.
It's like if they kind of use alien like a nationality.
Yeah.
Yeah, whereas like you're not from where I'm from.
They probably use it as a slur too.
Yeah, most sci-fi kind of work from the perspective of humans, so everything else is alien, which is kind of weird. But it's for me, like
it's the other. You know, it's like
the other
to otherize people. Like you're not just a Minbari, you're not just a Centauri, you're not just a Narn. You are an alien. You're lumped in you're lumped in that giant group of not us.
Yeah, we're not supposed to understand what you do, despite the fact that you do stuff just like us, except for you develop different ways of doing the same thing we do. Yeah, I said that right.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, I mean, kind of like different cultures on Earth. Like, we're all human, but some places where people maybe appreciated some things more, and some cultures appreciate things less, and so those things got to be um, more emphasized in that culture, and that makes a difference. Even with the language, it was so cool. There's they sent a bunch of scientists up to Alaska. It's slightly off subject, but
No, that's
they
fine.
lived there for like several months, and eventually came back with their own dialect.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
like so they had their own little. They had their own dialect. You know, we see it in the United States. You have the Southwest or Northwest. You have the New York accent. Like we have a twang down here where I am.
Yeah.
And then there's different parts of the South that have different twangs. Like,
So you're making me have thoughts. Like, is there like a spacer talk? Because I know Garibaldi and Sinclair from Mars, right? You and I, we've heard the spacers' language on The Expanse, which is kind of cool, and not because it does sound like a bastardized form of South African in like a pidgin language, but I'm not gonna go there right now.
Yeah, it's a lazy way to find like an alternative language.
Yeah. The other thing is Babylon 4 and Babylon 5 are space stations. They're closed systems. They use water and air reclamation. I am of the opinion that they probably smell weird to everybody. Because they have like an alien sector with methane. They have a human sector. They have carrion eaters. They have people from all over the place. The place probably smells like really.
Depends on how well they scrape their air and filter through the air, and then like whatever they gather from the filters can also be used in the hydroponics. Because they got a hydroponics, they got an actual like garden
they got
in
actually
there to
grow their
the
stuff.
Yeah, and like the whatever biomatter they find in the air could be used to. I mean, this is hypothetical. They didn't say this. That's what I would say. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna move along because we took a big left turn. Anyway, so we get introduced to Zathras. He's being interrogated. He suddenly appeared on B4 on Babylon 4 after one of the flashes, and Sinclair and the Major are sitting there interrogating him, and he's explaining like, "Yes, I'm Zathras. I'm here because we need to take this station. I only serve the one, and the one needs the station. It's a place to launch attacks from in the Great War, and we need this place for the side of good and light." And we're seeing kind of we see the different styles of interrogation. The Major, who is already kind of going crazy, he's like, "No, I need you to come back with me because I'm going to be held accountable for this station. Excuse me. I'm going to be held accountable for this station, and I need proof." And Sinclair is all like, "Wait a minute. What are you talking about?" And another flash happens in front of them, and another person mysteriously appears, and it is a person in an EV suit, in a spacesuit. And Zathras is like, "Yeah, that's the one." And Sinclair is like dumbfounded, looking at us like, "Oh, he's in pain." And he holds out his hand, and Sinclair goes out to touch him, and it knocks him back. And he's asking, "What was that all about?" He goes, Zathras says, "I know that he's in great pain but I warned him." And you're like, "Warn him of what?" You know what I mean? Like, that's one of the many mysteries. And he goes, "He's in much pain, but he wants to sacrifice himself for other people." Breadcrumb.
Yeah.
So Zathras attempts to escape. They catch up with him. He warns everybody, like, "Look, y'all got to leave because we're unstuck in time. And if you stay, you're going to be trapped and you're going to die." What's happening elsewhere is we already talked about the Lynn's whole situation. She's withdrawing her. She's rejecting leadership. They take a vote, and she barely wins. and they're like, okay, we support your decision. We will convene later. We can't even say it. We will retract our decision to make you the leader, and we'll discuss it later. And so they leave, which all that whole part was like very like dramatic, by the way, because of the lights coming on and going off.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, back on Babylon 4, Garibaldi is assisting more with the evacuation. Now, the thing is, like, the entire time they've been working on evacuating those people, we just see a couple of ships and a few people stuck behind a door that they're rushing through. Which, do you think all of these people are military? They cannot all be military people. They have to be like private contractors, right?
Probably.
Because they're like,
because he was overseeing them building it. They didn't finish building it before it disappeared.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely not all contractors. Like, even before and after the build, there are going to be people manning the ship that have all different kinds of jobs and stuff. During the construction process, somebody's got to be cleaning them toilets. So there's always a janitor. While I'm about to make a left, y'all. Janitors need to be paid more because
that's not
they are essentially. And they're just like, well, like a lot of times I think so that class of workers is really underrated. And so I agree. They're definitely not only military personnel. You are not the most important thing out here. Let's go, janitors.
And so they're like rushing the door. and like it's barely it's just below a riot. They're screaming and yelling. They're trying to get out. Garibaldi's letting people go through 5 at a time. Like, go, go, go. We only need 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, close it. It's like, no, we need to go. All that. Like this whole thing is going on. As that's happening, another flash happens. Garibaldi is back on Mars, and he is listening to Lise give him the 3rd degree about him choosing to go to Babylon 5, and she don't want to go. Which I thought this was cool because we only heard about that part because of the previous episodes with the situation on Mars. What were you going to say, Mel?
Yeah. What was I going to say? It made it very obvious. Like, he did not get the clue when she told him at first. when that argument made so much sense to why she just kind of like, yeah, I'm married now. I'm having a kid. Like,
yeah,
her whole thing was like, forget you then. And he's like, well, we can make this work. Like, no, she's sitting there telling you, forget you. Like, I'm already done. If you're going to leave, I'm done. And you did not get the clue at all.
Right.
You sitting there wondering if I could have made it work. Like, you going to sit there away from me. Like, she clearly, okay, maybe not so clearly, but from what she said, it sounded like it was obvious that she was not going to wait for you.
Right. All right. So this part, it got me thinking. So they're having these flashes, right? They're going to different parts in time, different places in time. They are all unstuck. When they go visit these other places in time, is it their consciousness and they're seeing it, or is it just them and they are experiencing it? Because in both Sinclair and Garibaldi's flashes, they looked like just completely disoriented, and nobody said anything. Like, what do y'all think?
Like, I don't know if their consciousness is going back into their old body. From the wardrobe, it kind of looked like it because he wasn't wearing the same thing.
Yeah, he was wearing like some 90s button down something.
Yeah. So, like, why does the Tachyons only bring the consciousness into your old body into a whole nother place? if it was going to bring you into a different time, wouldn't it bring you to the time that you are here and just die and suffocate because there's no station there? But
oh, jeez, yeah, that's a good point.
Or in the walls or whatever. I don't know, but
that's a good point.
It's above my pay grade.
It's that whole I want to tell this story where people have flashbacks like a typical 90s 90s storytelling where we have to have flashbacks and explain things that was already explained before, but we get to actually see it and live it. But with time, that doesn't make sense. If you understand like how time travel works and how things move in space, it doesn't work technically. But for telling the story, it kind of sort of works. It's a lovely little way that sci-fi writers can use to do like self-reflection. It's that sci-fi way of doing like that backtracking, like what do you call it? When they flashback. Yeah. It's a sci-fi flashback.
So you got me thinking now, because I've been thinking about this for a while because I'm a nerd. So you said that time travel doesn't work like that, and it made me think because there are a couple of different ways that TV shows will depict time travel, and now that we've learned a little bit more about like how bodies move in space, like the Earth today is not where the Earth was 1,000 years ago, right? It's pretty interesting, and so it makes me think like whenever like Back to the Future or Terminator, when you are doing those time calculations, you also have to calculate like where the Earth actually is. So when you come out, you'll be landing on the road or you'll be on the ground, and not floating in space, like she said. One thing that made me think about what could work was, do you remember that TV show Generation X? They did, well, it wasn't a TV show. They did a made-for-TV movie. It was based on the X-Men, but it was an X-Men book called Generation X, and it had like a young team of mutants.
Was it like, it was like X-Men, but it was like an adult drama, very 90s thing?
Kind of.
Mutant X? Like, was it Mutant X?
No, not Mutant X. Because Mutant X, I think Mutant X was kind of based on it too, but they couldn't get the license. But Generation X was legit based on the X-Men books because there was a team called Generation X, and it was led by it was led by Banshee and the White Queen. And Jubilee was a part of it because she was a teenager. Anyway, like the premise of where mutant powers came from was it was the pineal gland carried the X factor. And all mutants had this latent power to be able to go into the astral realm, not just telepaths, which I thought was pretty interesting. All right, where am I going with this? What I'm saying is, what if to navigate space-time, like traveling through time, like forward and backwards and sideways and all that stuff, you need to have a consciousness and an organ like the brain. And so, like, instead of trying to map space, what you do is you map where brains are, and then you can leap from one brain to another brain. And to successfully time travel, you can't take a full body, but you take a consciousness.
Okay, that makes sense.
That happened earlier today. Who was I talking to?
Oh my God.
And they were talking about head injuries. No, it was last night. I went out with friends playing dominoes, and I learned the story of a friend who had a motorcycle accident, and in said accident he injured his head. And long story short, I told of a guy that I know that suffered a head injury, and after waking up from a concussion, he's a black man that now speaks with a British accent, like a African American man that now speaks with a British accent, and he's never been to Europe or anything. And it's like somebody came back, but like
different.
Original guy, that wasn't him.
Oh no, that's interesting. But that's what, like, the brain is very mysterious too. So we get to make up a lot of sci-fi stuff about that. And so, like, being able to combine those two different fun thought processes would be cool.
And
anyway.
then, like,
Oh, go ahead.
But they go back when they go back the first time. They're going back into when they were fighting together in the war. But all of that negates the fact that the first guy died of old age because of the temporal stuff.
Yeah, the tachyons.
The tachyons. Maybe because he was slightly outside of it, maybe inside of it. It still doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, maybe
it's very soft. The science
it's very soft, and we can only.
But it tells the story.
We can make assumptions about what happened to him. I mean, it does serve the story because it's like we don't want to be here for too long or whatever.
And yeah, Babylon 5 is very good at using science ideas to tell the story before it makes sense of the science. And that's what you're supposed to do with science fiction. Have fun with the science. They're having fun with the science. That's the purpose. Yeah.
Okay, so
we just know too much now, 30 years later.
So back in the interrogation room, they're like Zathras gets away and he hands something to the person in the suit flashing, and then that person disappears. He looks around and he's like, okay, I'm gonna run. They go and grab him, and they're like, well, what did you give him? He goes, I gave him a what did he call it? It's a device.
I forgot what it's called.
Dang, I forgot what it was called too. But it's a device that fixes him in time.
It's stabilizer.
Yeah, a time stabilizer. There you go.
Okay.
It stabilizes because he said that the one was unfixed in time and he needed to be fixed. And the major's like, well, you don't have one now. He's like, nope, because like I don't have one and I'm gonna die. And there's like, well, why would you die? And he explains like, I would die for a good cause. And I thought that was amazing because even though that character Zathras starts off a little quirky and silly, he's very resolute in what he's gonna do. Mm-hmm. The ship is starting to shake and they're like, okay, we need to get out of here. The distortions are getting worse. So everybody stands up and they're about to run him out. As they're going through the cargo bay, Zathras gets smashed by a pole. I'm sorry. A pole falls on Zathras and it was like exactly Zathras. But also he gets smashed by a pole and that's just funny to me. I don't know why. And they have to leave him there. And the major is like, screw it, I'm out of here. And Sinclair is like, no, I'm going to stay with you. But Zathras is like, no, you need to leave and live because there is a destiny for you. You have a great destiny that you have to fulfill. And so Sinclair leaves. And I thought that was really interesting too, because of all the things that were like, there were some very interesting things that Zathras was doing during the show that gives you little hints. Like at the beginning, when Zathras sees Sinclair walk in, he just brightens up and he looks and he smiles like, oh, never mind. No, not the one. And you're like, what? And then later, when you see the man in the EV suit, is like, yes, that's the one. He's the one. At the end, when Zathras is rescued, he's rescued by the one. He goes, I tried to tell them, I tried to warn them, mm-hmm. And it was it was one of those things that was like, it stands out to be very strange until they show the scene of the one taking off his helmet. And who is the one?
Sinclair.
Commander Sinclair.
The commander with a wounded face. He has a huge gash in his face and he's all gray-haired. So he is aged quite significantly under that mask.
Yes. Gray hair. His face, like he's all wrinkly. And
by the way, aged men are hot. Yeah, that part.
He ages like prunes. He aged like milk.
He did not age distinguishedly. He aged like
he aged like a
makeup artist did that best. Like they always make you look horrible. Like aging is this horrible thing. It's not like an anime where you like you still look good and you still like you did, but you got like some changes, like some gray hairs and maybe you changed your clothes, maybe.
Yeah, he aged like an avocado.
Yeah,
He aged like an avocado left on this counter for 30 minutes. He aged like a banana left in the car.
Oh no, I've had that happen.
So, Sheridan is the stranger from the future. He's wrinkled and you know the scene, like the other guys, they're leaving the station. They finished the evacuation and they're like burning out. That's good because the station is about to become unstuck in time again. It's about to leave and go back in time and help the war. Sinclair is the one from the future. And he takes his helmet off and he's saying, you know, I really tried to warn them, but everything happened just like it did before. And then a hand touches him on the shoulder. And she says, I know it did.
That was the Lynn.
Yeah.
And me and Nita both guessed it right.
So after that happens, we're like, oh, hey, that's the Lynn too. But they don't show her face. All they show is like her hand touching on Sinclair's shoulder. And then they show the evacuation group leaving the station. And then we end. And I just was really kind of like, hey, this is pretty interesting. So now that the show's over, like, what did you all think?
They're trying to foreshadow something that they're not showing. And that's hard for me to say, thinking that I'm going to hide anything that I know. Because I did go ahead and finish rewatching, and I know that eventually something happens with the Lynn that would justify them not wanting to show her at this time and surprising us with something that's going to happen for the rest of the show. That's how many seasons, and this is only the first one.
I think it's a total of 5 seasons.
They need to have some surprises. They need to have some cliffhangers, and this is their cliffhanger, I guess.
They have quite a bit of surprises too. Like this one I think is pretty interesting. But along with that, like, we don't get to see Delenn, and that, you know, that's fine, but we do get to see a lot of Zathras. And I was very interested in this character because he doesn't look like anything else ever. Like, he doesn't look like any other creature, character, alien. He's just him. But what it made me think of, what it reminded me of very slightly, was Neelix. Neelix from Star Trek Voyager. And then I don't know why my brain went there, but I don't think Neelix and Zathras would get along. I don't think they would make friends. I think Neelix would try to hurt Zathras, and I think Zathras would savagely beat Neelix.
Wait, Neelix typically gets along with everybody. Or at least he tries to.
He tries to, unless somebody is messing with Cass, and then he becomes a monster.
Oh yeah. So just don't mess with Cass. Right.
Which
I don't think he would mess with Cass.
I don't think so either. But Neelix is a very jealous person. He's very possessive. Neelix is very. That's
probably why he's a people person. I mean, people pleaser. That's what it's called. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a people pleaser. That's why he's so nice and bubbly all the time, and trying to get the best out of people. And then when he can't do that, he snaps.
Yeah. So this episode ends, and we got a few questions. Some of these we got answered, but some of these we just don't have answers for right now. One is, what and where did the tachyons come from that were being detected? We know it was Sector 14 and Babylon 4, but we don't know why. It just happens that way. We don't know. We know that tachyons made Babylon 4 disappear, but we don't know how it became unstuck in time. We know that there is we know the stranger found on Babylon 4. Well, a couple of strangers. It's Zathras and Sinclair. But we don't know where the commander at the very end came from. Like, it looks like he comes from the future, like the far future, and he's trying to do something, stop something from happening, but we don't know what, because all we know is the crew got evacuated, and from our perspective, everything is okay. So, like,
I would presume that because the strange alien mentioned that they needed the station, and they apparently may be from the future, because the people that he interacted with, he saw Sinclair and said he's not the one, but he knew the one was Sinclair, but not that Sinclair. So he knew it was future Sinclair. He knew to leave past Sinclair alone, because that's not the one who needed the device. It was future Sinclair. So I thought, for me, it was obvious that the tachyons are being admitted from the future in order to bring the station to the future to use for a war.
Yeah. And it definitely leads that way, right? Like, especially all this time travel stuff happening. It's very interesting. And then even though they don't say this, we, like, what will happen to the B4 crew when they get home? Like, those 1,200 people off the station, and they're gonna go back to, like, Earth Force, different places and stuff, contractors. It reminds me of the end of Avengers Infinity War, Endgame, when they snapped all those people back after 5 years. And there was some shows that dealt with what it did. Like Aunt May, she when she came back, somebody else was living in her apartment, right?
And the whole plot. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
The whole plot of Winter Soldier and Falcon.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like, all these people came back. What are we going to do about it? There's an issue because now we're fighting because
things were better when there were fewer people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it leaves a lot of those questions, and then it makes me wonder, like, how is the Babylon 5 crew going to handle this going forward? We don't know exactly, but there are, like, some recurring themes that seem to kind of pop up. There is the theme of destiny. They talked about Sinclair having a destiny he has to fulfill, and I thought that was pretty weird. But at the same time, he's the commander, and stuff surrounds, like, things seem to surround him. This whole thing with the time traveling space station, the thing with the Minbari, him choosing to always sacrifice himself, all of those things, and he still has a destiny in front of him. There's the issue of consequences, the consequences of one's choices. Like, all of these do relate, like destiny and consequences, because along with that is Delenn's choice to not take leadership. Without spoiling anything, there are some other things influencing her decision. There are a lot of things influencing her decision. Prophecy is one, but there's something else that we'll look at later. And then the last one is, can the past be changed? It was, from this show, it seems like the answer is no, because no matter what anyone did, they couldn't change what happened in the past. And that kind of goes along with one of the theories of time travel too.
Yeah. Well, they didn't know what was happening in order to try to change it. Kind of like it was Back to the Future. They knew what happened. They knew it was supposed to happen, and he was doing all that he can to change what had been changed, because he was starting to disappear, all that other crap.
Yeah.
But with this, it was like they went in living and knowing that only what they knew, only their timeline. We only saw the first level of timeline.
Yeah. And with all of the different mishaps, even people who were a little bit more informed, they were like, I tried to change things, but I couldn't tell them. Everything happened the way it did, Hemingway chose to, and it's just like, wow. Even if you have the power to travel through time, you can't change it.
And it didn't help that he was kind of. I felt like the way he was talking was like a sci-fi stereotypical pidgit. Like he doesn't understand the language enough to go back in time and try to explain things. Y'all could,
yeah.
Y'all could gave him a universal translator or something so that he could just, or he was just that simple. Like, I'm a simple being, and I just need to. You couldn't find anyone with a higher level of communication to go back and explain these things to people.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Oh man, that bothers me so much, especially in shows like Lost, where there's a person who knows everything and they literally won't talk because they're stupid. Anyway, all right, we need to get out of here. Last thoughts on this episode. Well, for me, things were cool. This is kind of ramping up that type of storytelling that I like coming from Babylon 5. They've established this. They have established the universe pretty well, and they showed us a lot of things we never seen before. They showed us what they only talked about, which was Babylon 4 disappearing, which was also Garibaldi having a fight with Lise. And so I'm like very excited to see what else they want to show us, because they're more of a show not tell type story.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
I agree. It's a show not tell story. They some things they do tell, and they're bad at doing it. Like, why did you say that? But a lot of the times it's more the visual, it's more the metaphor of things. There were not so many metaphors outside of I'll probably someday figure out what the metaphor for tachyons are, but that's just going to throw me off now. But to show, like, one, the history of Babylon 5, because you got to explain why all these stations keep falling. And I say the word falling because of the reference to the Bible and Babylon, because the Tower of Babylon fell. Yeah, so the point was, they're going to keep failing for some reason. Maybe this is 4. Maybe eventually we'll figure out what happened to 5 and what happened to 2 and what happened to 1. We kind of heard a little bit about it, but to know like the actual details and experience why they did it and what this war is that's coming up, blah, blah, blah. And what's going to happen to Delenn? How's she going to keep her post if they're going to shun her for not taking a higher stand? Like, they're basically like, but we said you get this status and you're not taking it. Like, you may not see us. We're going to figure out what we're going to have to do with you because you don't want to be our leader because we told you we were going to make you our leader. So now we hate you. Like, right. It was very, very Mean Girls, despite the fact that I've never seen the movie Mean Girls. But that's what I imagine it being. Just very the social aspect, despite the fact that they pride themselves so much on studying and understanding things.
Great. All right. So we went a little on. We're gonna get out of here. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Voices in Hyperspace. Anyone listening, you can join us either on any of your podcast apps, which I want to give an update about that. So Google Podcasts is gone, and what they have suggested is people to use YouTube Music. I've experimented around with it. It's going to take a little tooling for you to use it, but you absolutely can, and it is a serviceable outlet. But for the rest of y'all that use Apple Music, Amazon, and the plethora of others, you can still catch us right where you find us. In the meantime, get us on Spotify. That's great. And we also have our YouTube channel up. We're going to be adding some more exclusive content to that. And Mel, can you tell people about the Voices of Hyperspace group?
We have a Facebook group where you can talk about whatever we talk about on here, or just share sci-fi memes. Keep it somewhat clean, please.
Yeah.
We will be on there checking the memes and laughing and commenting. Yeah, check us out on Facebook and TikTok.
Yeah. Oh yeah, TikTok. I forgot about that too. Yes, TikTok at Voices in Hyperspace. You can also catch Mel on Mel's Rebellion. And what are your
everywhere?
And everywhere.
Mel's Rebellion everywhere. I am Mel Asylum, and you can find Mel's Rebellion on TikTok and TikTok, Instagram, Meta. I'm on X. I don't use it. Facebook. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Find me, and I have a website called melsrebellion.com where you can find my book, and you can find this podcast.
On the podcast.
Yes, I am engineering. Thank you. We will be back on Earth soon for your bedtime.
Yes. All right, we're gonna get out of here. Be sure to catch us next time. Oh, Sunday, you want to say something?
Thank you so much for hanging out with us. It's gonna be amazing episodes to come. See y'all later.
All right. Thank y'all very much. We're gonna get out of here. We'll see y'all next time.